Hey everybody, it's a little late for my week 2 since technically this is week 3, but I was just so busy last week, and so I figured it's still early enough this week that I can do this update as a week 2 update, and then by the end of the week I can do my week 3 update. It also helps that I'm going to probably be doing a lot of garden work in the next few days, so don't worry if you've seen this one, there'll still be new stuff on the next one. I just want to take a moment to point out how green everything is. It's about the end of May and summer is finally getting going. I love the way that the sun reflects off the leaves. So I'm going to start with my back gardens, and this might look a little strange because it's about halfway covered with straw. I don't know if you remember from my video about things that I want to improve on, but I had mentioned that I wanted to start mulching my beds with straw. And this is because in my experience with the last few summers, I've discovered that I really hate weeding. And as a result, it can really damage the progress that my garden makes because I am way too intimidated to weed, and thus the weeds end up taking away some of the nutrients that could otherwise go to my plants. So as you can see, there are some holes in the straw, and that's because I've put plants there, and so until the plants get bigger, I've just created a little bit of a hole in the straw so that the sun can still reach those plants. Of course, the reason why I have the straw to cut down on weeds is because by covering the bare soil with the straw, the sun is kept from the soil surface, and thus weed seeds aren't really able to germinate, or if they do, they'll be killed off pretty quickly because they won't have any access to sunlight. Another little perk to mulching is that it helps the soil retain moisture, so I don't have to water as much. So here's some of my herbs. I'm not actually sure which one that is. It came back up from last year, so I need to sort of give it a smell, give it a taste, and see what happens. There's my oregano. It's nice and bushy. So this is a perennial edible that I bought at a edible perennial plant show that I recently went to. It's called Good King Henry, and it's a green that I can include in salads. Here is an alpine strawberry, which is another perennial. Well, all strawberries are perennials, but alpine strawberry, the nice thing about it is that it can do well in partial shade, which is why I planted it back here. My 2 chives are doing quite well, and my garlic is doing quite well. I'm really pleased. It's got a very thick stalk on it, and I've counted probably about 6 or 7 leaves on each plant. And so when I read up on how to harvest garlic, it said that I'll know that the garlic is ready to harvest when about half of the leaves have shriveled up. So I'll be keeping an eye on these plants, and once 3 or 4 leaves have shriveled up, I'll pull up the garlic. I actually did some harvesting of my rhubarb, and you can actually see the discarded leaves here. That's because, of course, rhubarb leaves are poisonous for people and animals to eat. So when you harvest the stalks, you cut off the leaves. And in this case, I've just sort of discarded them. But I'll probably move them to my compost pile. I did plant a broccoli seedling right here. It is quite thin and weak, so I'm not sure if it's going to make it, but I thought I'd see anyway, and it's looking pretty decent. I mean, at least it's not flopped over. Here is my mint. My lemon balm has bushed out quite well, probably because I did harvest some in the last week and a half. And of course, with a lot of herbs, the best way to sort of keep it growing is to harvest, because once the plant registers that it's lost some of its vegetative growth, it'll put out a whole bunch of energy to grow more. Next, my lemon balm. I've planted some chocolate mint. And over here, I've planted 3 Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes. They're an edible perennial that can perform well in partial shade, so again, I included them in this bed. These are my potato trenches that you saw in last week, but there hasn't been any more growth on that front. This is going to be where I'm going to plant my greens, so I really have to get on that, which means I have to weed this. And in case you're wondering why the straw is only covering part of it, that's just because I've got some dirt mounted up there for the potatoes, and once I sort of figure out what to do with that dirt until my potato plants start growing, I can't put any straw down because I want to actually plant something in the area where that mounded dirt is. And here's my asparagus. Look how tall that is. That is nuts. Like, I think I did my last video a week and a half ago, and these two little buggers were barely poking out of the soil. So a week and a half, and it's grown all the way from down there all the way up here. And so it's all spreading out because I didn't harvest any of my asparagus this year. This is only the second year that I have these plants, and typically they recommend that you leave it alone for the second year to let it photosynthesize and store a bunch of energy into the roots, so that next year I'll get enough asparagus to harvest. And soon enough I'll be weeding from all around those plants, and we'll put down straw. And here's my fruit, again quite weedy, so I need to get rid of those weeds to put down the straw. Now of course you might think, well, what if I just put down the straw and the straw will block the weeds from getting any sun and the weeds will just die? And maybe that would happen, but I guess I'm a little anal, and so I just feel more comfortable getting rid of the weeds totally and then putting down the straw. So here's my gooseberry bush. It has bushed out quite well, and I'm really hopeful that at least next year there will be a good crop. My comfrey is doing well. Again, in this row of Hascap berries, the only one that's really doing well is this one, and that's the one that I got from a fruit nursery, whereas the other 3 I had gotten earlier in the year and had been keeping them inside, and unfortunately was not prudent with the watering, and so they died. And so this is a currant, and it is doing quite well as well, so I'm excited about that. My elderberry bushes, on the other hand, seem to be struggling a little bit. Perhaps it's just a little too shady in this area. They are known for doing well in shady areas, but maybe this is a bit too shady. At least this elderberry bush is doing not badly. It's got some good growth there and at the base. As you can see, there are tons of ferns. I have to go and pull those out. They basically popped up within a week. It's kind of nuts because they're all along the back of the garden. And they had been here where I'm planning on eventually putting more shrubs, and I just went through and picked them out. So here in the front you can see that the irises are out. I love these flowers. I think they are so beautiful. Unfortunately, they are only in bloom for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, so I'm enjoying them while they last. And here I have 2 of the 3 lilies that I planted out here a couple weeks ago. There was a third. It's down here, but unfortunately it does not seem to be doing as well as the other 2, so I'll keep an eye on that. But meanwhile, I'm really excited about these 2. They have flower buds, so I was not expecting that. I suppose I thought that they would get longer stems, but they didn't, and they've already produced flower buds, so I'm really excited to see what those flowers look like. For the most part, this is my mom's flower garden, but she did give me a little bit of space, and so here you can see that there are 6 strawberry plants. Now, as opposed to the alpine strawberries I showed you in the back, which can do well in partial shade and also produce smaller berries, these are the typical strawberry plant that produces the typical strawberry that you might find at a grocery store. So these prefer full sun, which is why I put them in my mom's flower garden, because really it has the best amount of sun. Although I'm hoping that might change for my front vegetable garden, since we've taken down some branches and trees. So there's my little strawberry plant. Of course, here I've got to make sure that there's no straw covering them and keeping the sun from getting at their leaves. There we go. And so some of these plants actually came with flowers, which I snipped off. I know what you're probably thinking. Oh my gosh, Brittany, why would you snip off flowers? Those would become berries. But relax, there is a method to my madness. When you snip off the first flowers of the strawberry plants, especially when you have just planted them, what will happen is, instead of devoting more energy to the development of those flowers and then the development of the following fruit, the plant will be forced to allocate that energy to more leaf growth, which will eventually result in more flowers and more fruit. So although you have to wait a little bit longer for delicious strawberries, you eventually get a larger amount. So it's a little bit of a long-term gratification situation. The potatoes in my potato bags have done fairly well, have popped up. I'm still waiting for a few more to pop up, since I put 4 in each bag. But as you can see, there's probably about 3 there, 2 over there that have already sprouted, and then I think there's 1 right down there. And there's my Renegade Lovage plant, which, as I mentioned in the last video, I basically did everything I could to take out of this garden, and yet it still came back. I just spotted this plant here, and I'm wondering what it was, because I rubbed the leaves and smelled my fingers, and it smells somewhat minty, but still not exactly like mint, and the leaves are a different shape than my mint leaves, so I know it's not mint. I wonder if that's the anise hyssop which I put in there. Again, I took out the anise hyssop before rototilling and adding my mulch, but again, as I've seen with this lovage, I think these perennials are pretty persistent. Kind of interesting, because a bunch of little plants have come up in this front garden, and I'm almost playing a game of, is it edible, is it not? It's sometimes hard to tell. I'm definitely not an expert. This one I know for sure. If the appearance didn't give it away, the smell definitely would. I just rub it between my fingers, smell it, and oh, I love the smell of dill. It is such an amazing aroma. I cannot wait until I have a bigger dill plant and I can start harvesting it for cooking. Here you see another bale of straw, as well as some more in the wheelbarrow. So I'm going to try and continue putting that through my gardens this weekend. Of course, I also need to do a bunch of planting, so I guess we'll see what happens. And here are some of my seedlings brought up from the basement that I put out on this handy dandy little stand to basically expose them to outside temperatures so that when I plant them in the ground they won't experience transplant shock, or as much transplant shock. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's some plants here that I'm not sure if I can salvage. The broccoli sprouts are just so tiny and weak, and these peas were really supposed to go in the ground a long time ago, but I've yet to get my T-posts for my trellis. I've ordered them from a local hardware store, and they should be coming in the next week or so. So that's it for my week 2 update. This weekend I'm hopefully going to have a lot more availability, so I'm planning on doing a couple videos, including my week 3 update, which will include what I'm going to be doing in the next few days. So if you're enjoying this little weekly series that I have going on, please hit like and maybe comment mentioning what you like, asking any questions that you might have. I always love to share what's going on in my garden and why I've chosen the techniques that I've chosen. Of course, I am still learning. I'm not an expert, so any tips or tricks that you might have will be definitely just as welcome as, you know, any questions. So if you'd like to see more of my weekly updates and other videos, please hit the subscribe button down in the corner. And I look forward to sharing more of my garden with you guys. So until then, happy gardening!